This is Carl with your weekly livestock update, and pretty busy week as far as information went fundamentally. We got a lot of news released this week. Starting out really over the weekend, the United States and Mexico had a pretty major blow up on screwworm testing. The New World screwworms that are in Mexico. United States has had a pretty firm stance against, trying to keep that out of the United States, and a lot of it comes from Mexico as cattle filter up through all of South America and end up coming in the United States as feeders. Um, so USDA wants some tighter restricting protocol, in place, and we've really had not really a pushback from Mexico, but they just kind of been lethargic in getting it done. So Sunday night, we put a 30-day suspension on live cattle imports from Mexico. Several animals, but feeder cattle was one we were most interested in. Got their attention. Mexico's going to tighten up protocols, they say, and really everything coming up through the south, they claim they're going to try to be a little more up on that. In all reality, New World Order screwworm is probably already in the United States. We just haven't found it yet, and we're not going to test for it, and we'll leave it at that. Second piece of news came out this week was the WASDE report. First initial look at 2026 red meat projections. I put them out in our writing, but I'm going to tell you, I didn't put a lot of faith into them. And reason being, the USDA did put a disclaimer that all numbers that were released in the WASDE incorporated U.S. trade policy at the time the report was put together. The thing is, I've seen a lot of different trade policies floated around, and to pick the official one versus what trade is using is a little bit confusing. And bottom line is, I'm not putting a ton of faith in them. But bottom line is, beef production expected to go down, beef consumption likely going to go down due to prices and limited supplies. Pork production expected to go up as our pork supplies. Didn't really surprise any of us. That was pretty much in line with expectations. The same time that this data was coming out on Sunday and Monday, Brazil had a trade delegation in China, and that included President Lula. And it really, I think it went a little bit unnoticed until all of a sudden later in the week we started getting announcements that Brazil had, China had opened up the border for Brazilian DDG imports and a few other products. And one of the pushes was to get a little bit more red meat into China from Brazil. Pork, but also some beef. Beef trade highly strained between the two parties, but that was prior to the trade war with the United States. China does appear as though they're going to take a little bit softer stance and maybe import some beef. It looked like they were getting close to it. And this got up to the end of the week when all of a sudden we had a bird flu discovery in Brazil. And China immediately slapped a 60-day suspension on poultry imports from Brazil. I can't say that's going to stop or affect the moving forward process with opening up beef trade between the two. It could, and it actually could end up showing, Brazil could say, look, our testing protocols work. We're doing good here. We caught that before it got into the supply. You know the story. So, I mean, we're going to have to see how that it's about a 50-50 chance, obviously, but it does appear as though you are going to see better trade relations between those two impacting the U.S., unfortunately. One of the big stories this week, outside of trade relations and such, was news that feeders are starting to feed lots are starting to pass on replacement cattle due to price. We, obviously had a big run up in prices this week. Really collapsed towards the end of the week. Feeder cattle did. I think this news got some attention of the market. That guys saying, "Look, I'm going to let some lots sit empty. Hard to find stocker cattle. We'll let pastures sit empty." I think that really did kind of send a bit of a shock through the market. We know that the market's been overvalued for quite a while, overpriced, overbought, all three, and especially feeder cattle. So to see a big correction there wasn't surprising. We took off $10 in 2 days. That's a pretty big drop. Limited demand at sale barns will start to do that. High prices do cure high prices. It doesn't matter if it's grain or it's on the hoof. It will happen. So we did see a major correction in the feeders. Firmed up a little bit at the end of the week. Hogs gapped higher this week. Hogs showed some strength, so we did see a gap higher to start the week and held it through the week. Hogs showing a little resilience, and of course, pork can be a little bit more of an alternative if you have a tight economy to beef, and consumers looking at that a little bit here. Some key numbers to watch, I would say next week as we move forward. On the feeder cattle, we went down, took feeders down to 295 and held and rebounded. So I think when we dropped down and hit that level, we got some buying in that August contract and came up off it. That was pretty good news in my opinion. Looks like we have some pretty firm support there. On the fat cattle, October 202. It does look like that's some pretty good support there. We dropped down, hit it twice, including in today's session, and bounced off that. So there's an area of support for us to look at. On hogs, like I said, we gapped higher to start the week. That gap starts at 101.45. If we start to see selling in that complex, that will likely be a technical objective to get to close that up. So keep those three levels in mind. Not saying that they're absolutely going to hold, but they're three key levels that I'm watching here moving forward on those particular contracts. If you would like any other livestock information, market information, or what else I'm looking for here or at in the market, don't hesitate to reach out. Shoot me an email, Carl, Karl at consusag.net, consusag.net. Send me an email and happy to get in touch with you if there's anything else we can provide. Until then, thank you for your time.